Hey, this is Zach from Theology Gaming, and I want to talk about my most played deck. This is taken from a Hearthpwn user called BRB Crit Walking. Anyway, thanks to him, I have been playing this quote-unquote Balladin, or Trap House Paladin, which is one of the most interesting decks I think I've ever played in this game, and probably, if I had to say, my most favorite. Which is not something you usually say about a deck, but it's a really neat deck construction, and it's very interesting. So the reason why it's called Paladin is because for the majority of the deck, as you can probably see from looking at the various cards within it, is that it is very much focused upon secrets. So there are three classes in Hearthstone that have secrets, one of which is Paladin, the other two are Hunter and Mage. Now, secrets are basically like playing a card in advance, and it's a mystery to your opponent what you played. And when the certain effect that triggers a secret happens, then the secret is revealed, blah blah blah, something interesting happens. So, Paladin secrets are not exactly considered the best, and there are probably a couple reasons for this. So, Avenge is a pretty good one. When one of your minions dies, give a random friendly minion +3/+2. This does not activate when you actually throw your minion into an opponent, so you have to take that into consideration. You have to make them make a trade. So a lot of secrets are passive. They require your opponent to do something, and then they trigger. So that's one reason why they're bad. The other reason is that some of them are just really bad. As you may know, Hearthstone is a game about resource management. And health is as much a resource as anything else. So something like an eye for an eye, when your hero takes damage, deal that much damage to the enemy hero, is really kind of bad. Especially if you're in the early game and they have like a one attack minion out and they just attack you. It's not exactly the best thing that you could possibly be using, which is why it's not in this deck. Now, Noble Sacrifice, when an enemy attacks, summon a 2/1 defender as the new target, it doesn't seem that great, right? I mean, you get a 2/1, right? And whatever big enemy they decide to throw into you basically like gets hit for 2 attack and dies. And the defender dies too, but that's fun. Redemption. When one of your minions dies, return it to life with 1 health. Sounds pretty bad. I mean, what's a 1 health minion, right? And then Repentance. When your opponent plays a minion, reduce its health to 1. None of the Paladin secrets seem very good, is what I'm saying. But, surprisingly enough, this deck works on the strength of these secrets. And the reason why is because the deck is constructed around it, and the deck is mostly constructed around the idea of value. Now, the best comparison I can give you to actually playing it is that it is much more similar to Zoo. Now, if you play Zoo, you know that Warlock Zoo is basically like put down a bunch of high-value minions and then use other minions to buff them at the same time as bringing new minions into play. The more value you get, the better, because your minions are usually really good. So, a lot of the cards in this deck are meant to emphasize value. So, Argent Protector, not a card used very much except for an aggro paladin. It gives a friendly minion Divine Shield. And Divine Shield is going to be a common theme in this deck because Divine Shield is great at creating a minion that stays on the board and provides a whole lot of value. So with Argent Protector, you're basically using Argent Protector to give another minion Divine Shield so that it can trade into something. So it's trading up. That's the whole point. You want to always trade up with this deck. And the reason why we have Blood Mage Thalnos is because Blood Mage Thalnos is card draw. So, just for example, we have Loot Hoarder here, also for card draw. So, these seem weird, right? But we have this Death Rattle here that provides us with value. So, let's say one of these minions dies, Redemption's up, comes up, then you get basically another free card draw. Now, an opponent can go and silence it, but it's almost like a waste of time, because if this minion dies and it's 1 health, right? Then it dies again, then Redemption procs, it's back to normal. The silence effect does not carry over to a minion dying and then being resurrected with 1 health, which is really good. Same goes for Mad Scientist. You have a lot of secrets in this deck. You want to get the secrets out. So you put the mad scientist on the board early, then he dies, then he gets resurrected by redemption. You got another secret in play once you decide to trade it into something. And that's why Shielded Minibot's so good, because he already has Divine Shield, right? So he'll trade into something. Let's assume the opponent kills it when redemption's up. Then you've got another 2-1 with a Divine Shield back up. Divine Shield comes back on any time that a minion comes back to life from a redemption proc, which is basically amazing. So basically, a lot of this deck is about using secrets to maintain board control. So imagine that your opponent wants to kill something, right? Use Noble Sacrifice. If Noble Sacrifice is up, they think they can just trade into the minion. Instead, their minion takes 2 attack, and they have nothing to show for it. Which seems awful. Like, in some sense, you can think of it as a delay tactic, but what it's doing when it procs is that it's letting you keep the board you already have. So you're keeping board control with the secrets. Same goes for Avenge, right? If Avenge is up and they kill one of your minions, another one of your minions gets a huge buff. That means they have to deal with this thing. And then most of the time, the thing they have to deal with has Divine Shield on, which makes it even more annoying to deal with. And that goes for Redemption too. Something resurrects, comes back with Divine Shield. Not a lot of fun. So we also have other minions with Divine Shield, like Scarlet Crusader, which is normally bad, but with Redemption, its drawback is almost non-existent, because it comes back with Divine Shield again. And you also have things like Kizan Mystic to steal secrets away from other opponents. You got Sludge Belcher, whose Death Rattle causes another 1/2 taunt to appear. And with Redemption, it's just like mind blown. Same goes for Sunwalker, which is why it exists. Because if you have a Sunwalker up with Redemption, it's almost like a win. Same goes for Argent Commander, which is basically there for that last minute push of damage. And the same goes for Tyrion, who also can come back to life. And you get an Ashbringer, which is a 5/3 weapon, which is like really, really great. And one of the reasons why we have Consecrate plus Thalnos for the spell damage, which means it's 3 attack instead of 2 attack to all enemies, which is to deal with your Grim Patron Warriors and other such assorted miscreants. So we don't run inequality in this deck because the whole point is to keep the minions alive. So trying to maintain board control, you don't really want equality messing that up, even if it feels really useful. So this is a very strange deck, as you can tell. I mean, we've got a Coghammer here for more Divine Shields. We also have a True Silver Champion, which is there for obvious board clear. But comes a point in this deck where once you have enough board control, you just have to start pushing for face damage. Because again, as I mentioned earlier, this is a zoo deck. So it's about value. And once you have board control and they can't really do anything about it because you got a couple secrets up and they have no idea what's happening, you just start pushing for face damage until they die. So, like, Tyrion is kind of like your last-ditch effort to close the game out. And usually you'll hit about turn 8 to 10, I'd say, with this, if you're playing it right. And by that point, their health will be so precipitously low that they're going to have really a problem recovering. So, the only other thing that you have to know is when to play Divine Favor. So, basically, this deck runs some card draw, but not a lot. And you really just want to start playing the secrets and other low-cost stuff as soon as possible, which means that your hand will empty out really quick. So, what you have to do is figure out when to use Divine Favor. There are some classes where it'll be just super easy to just get the resources like Handlock and Control decks. Divine Favor is really good against those, but against like Face Hunter and stuff, you can still win. You just have to make sure that you don't end up with Divine Favor sitting in your hand doing a whole lot of nothing. Other than that, this deck seems more complicated than it is, but it's really just a zoo deck, and that's kind of the mentality you need. Now, as for other things, you try not to have Noble Sacrifice and Redemption at the same time, and the reason why is because if an enemy attacks and the Noble Sacrifice procs, then when the Noble Sacrifice dies, it'll proc into Redemption, which is like kind of a waste of 2 cards, and the value is definitely not there. Repentance, you don't generally want to play Repentance in the early game for obvious reasons. You want to play it when a Handlock, for example, puts down a Molten Giant, and then suddenly it's at 1 health, which is pretty funny any way you look at it. Avenge is really the one you want to play early game. Noble Sacrifice can work late and early. It's just that you never want to play it when Redemption's up most of the time. Now, in the late game, when you have board control and stuff like that, it's actually pretty good to have a 2-1 up, because you mostly want to assume they can't deal with it, but anyway. The Mad Scientist obviously would be the optimal mulligan strategy, and you want to have probably a secret or 2. You really don't want to have the secrets in your hand all that often, so try to play them as soon as you can, but just make sure to know what the interactions between them are. Yeah. If you can basically survive to turn 5, you pretty much clinch the game against most of the classes. So, anyway, I'm not going to show you any games because I think that will be more suitable for tomorrow, but here is a look at the deck that I've been playing like almost constantly because it's like super fun, especially because there's also the mind game that they can't really tell what secret you have up, because like, who the heck plays Paladin secrets? So there's the added element of surprise, which works very, very well. And if you can steal a Hunter secret or a Mage secret, more power to you, because it's going to be hilarious, whatever happens. All right, see you guys later.